Secret of Suranesh really operates at three different levels as far as the story goes. The first level is the sort of hypothetical, historical aspect of it, this business of a lost civilization. But of course the movie is really about the spiritual teachings that hopefully come through in it. And I kind of divide those up into two different parts. There's what I think of as the plain text spiritual exploration of the movie, and what we tried to do with it is take the 4 or 5 most basic spiritual questions that every human being has, whether they're religious or not, and regardless of the religion they may have chosen. And those questions we divided up into the 5 acts of the film, and the way that they unfold is, the most basic spiritual question of all is, do we have a spirit? Is there such a thing as spirituality? Which is the same question as, is there a God or is there not a God? So that's the first choice that people make when they're exploring spirituality. And if there is a God, the second fork in the road that you come to is, what is the nature of that God? Is God a blind force like gravity or any other force you might think of in nature, or is God what we call a personal God? And of course the movie comes down on the side of a personal God, because a blind force is really, to my mind, is no God at all. If it's a blind force, that's not by definition God. So God is a personal God, but that shouldn't be construed to be that God is like a human being. And there's a passage in the movie where Suranesh asks Srala, is God like a person? And Srala says, well, God is not like a person, but a person is like God. So it's a difficult thing to wrap your mind around, but the human being has attributes of God, and God conversely has attributes of human beings, but that doesn't limit our conception of God. God is so large that we really can't wrap our mind around God's essence. And yet we know that God is a personal God, because anything that's exalted over humanity by definition must contain all the attributes of humanity, all the capacities of humanity. So you have the passage that, if humans are capable of showing compassion to each other, then God must be capable of that. If humans are capable of abstract thought, God must be capable of that, and so much more. If humans are capable of love, of a personal love one for another, then God, by definition, must be capable of that, and so forth. So all of the attributes that humans are capable of, God must, by definition, contain within himself, and yet is exalted so much beyond that. But this much we know, or we think we've figured out about God, which is that God exists, and God is a personal God that indeed loves us individually and collectively. And the collectively part is what leads into the next sections, which is, and these are questions again that everyone has, if there is a God, and God's a personal God, does God love us? And we believe that God loves us because God has sent messengers to tell us that he loves us and to show us that he loves us. And we know that these are his messengers because of the transforming effect that they have on human society. A lot of historians who aren't religious people at all can look at the scope of history and realize that the founders of the world's major religions are the prime movers of human civilization. Human civilizations crop up as these figures appear, and so they are the catalysts of civilization itself. Science and technology notwithstanding, that kind of rides on a whole separate rail, but we can look throughout history and see that that Zoroaster, that Krishna, that Moses, that even Abraham, going back farther and going forward, that Buddha, Jesus Christ, Muhammad, all of these figures, and as Baha'is believe, up to and including the Bab and Baha'u'llah, have transformative qualities And we say in the movie they impregnate the world of humanity with a new spirit, and out of that grows a new life. And so that's how we conclude that God loves us. If He didn't love us, then He would leave us to our own devices ad infinitum, and we would basically still remain in the animal state. But love is the only way that we can explain the progress of humankind. And then if all that is true, the last question that we come to is that if all those other things are true, then why do innocent people suffer? If God loves us, why do we suffer? Some questions are inscrutable to humans, but we believe that the key to understanding a lot of the suffering in the world is that God in this life is very much concerned with humanity as a whole. There's a duality to this. Yes, God's concerned about us individually, because if He wasn't, then humanity society as a whole can't progress if humans as individuals don't progress. And yet there is even more concern over the movement of society, because if civilization is bereft of spiritual life, then it's hard for individuals within that system to raise themselves up. So there's a synergistic dynamic that happens between the whole of society, the collective, and the individual. You can't have individual progress without societal progress. You can't have societal progress without individual progress. But because that's true, innocent human beings do suffer in the cause of the progress of the whole. And it's a difficult thing for us to accept, because we do perceive ourselves as individuals. And yet we believe this is so for the reasons that we articulate in the film. So that's really the plain text. Anybody paying attention to the movie would hear those points coming out. But we really discovered that after I had finished writing the piece and talking with Joe and with Jay about it, we discovered that the movie was operating at even a deeper level, a third level, which was that the whole plot was operating as an allegory for a concept that we call progressive revelation. And this is an idea that's held by many world religions, but especially by the Baha'i faith, that humanity is progressing as we go. It is the convergence of evolution and spirituality. It's the evolution of the spirit. So we recognize that there is spirituality, we recognize that evolution is at play, and that humans are progressing as we go forward. And so in the movie, as an allegory, we discovered that Suranesh himself is a symbol for all humanity, and that the elders are symbolic of messengers from God, these prophets that have founded each of the major religions, what we also call manifestations. And each of the manifestations knows all of the answers to all of his questions, but they won't give that up. They wait till they feel he is ready to hear the next part of it before they give it. And that's what drives him from location to location throughout the movie, is this idea that yes, they know the answers, but he has to go to the next one to find out. So that the allegory for progressive revelation is something that happened within the script without me even thinking about it, which I think is a neat phenomenon. So we can see that Suranesh as a symbol for humanity is progressing from elder to elder, from manifestation to manifestation, learning as he goes, and hopefully the way that the movie ends, even though they're descending into night, hopefully it ends on a hopeful note, that there will be a tomorrow, and that tomorrow will be even better than yesterday. So hope you enjoyed our movie, and thanks for watching, and God bless.